Shohei Ohtani.
What the San Francisco 49ers have to do to beat the Los Angeles Rams.
Jordan Love practiced 2 days in a row. It looks like he could go on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans.
There's a new proposed settlement that could keep Florida State and Clemson in the ACC.
More SEC on SEC action this week.
The Locked On Podcast Network presents The Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports. You are Locked On Jets Postcast.
With the pressure of being back in MetLife Stadium, the pressure of needing to have a good performance against the New England Patriots on Thursday Night Football, needing to show that this team, this offense, this unit was trending in the right direction, the New York Jets answered every question, checked every box, and gave Jets fans that big-time performance, all because of Aaron Rodgers in his first MetLife Stadium victory as the quarterback for the New York Jets. I know that first one technically counts where he played 4 plays, but this one's probably going to feel a little sweeter than that one did. A 281-yard performance, 2 touchdowns, ended the night 27 for 35. 281 yards, the 2 touchdowns, a passer rating of 118.9, and he got it to everybody. It's going to take me a little bit to count all of the guys that were involved in this offense. They spread the ball around to everybody. Tyler Conklin with a big game. Alan Lazard caught a touchdown. Garrett Wilson caught a touchdown. Mike Williams showed that contested catch ability. Breece Hall involved in the passing game. Braylon Allen involved in the passing game. Jeremy Ruckert involved in the passing game. Xavier Gibson caught a number of passes. Let's do some quick math here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different receivers caught a pass from Aaron Rodgers tonight in this 24-3 victory. And going into the game tonight, there were a lot of questions. Is the rust going to be able to be shaken off with a short week? Is this team going to be able to put together a better performance than they did against Tennessee? You've got a 40-year-old quarterback coming off of an injury, a team that doesn't feel like they're gelling yet, a short week, not going to really get that in-depth practice time to be able to work on some of the things that plagued them in that Tennessee game. Well, this team started out hot. They started off with, I thought, some excellent play calls. Really only one series where the play calling felt a little weird. After the Chuck Clark fumble in the fourth quarter, it felt like the only time where Nathaniel Hackett got maybe a little too conservative, running on back-to-back plays and then only taking the shot to Mike Williams on third down when they had to have it. But other than that, I mean, a nifty opening play call, running a little play action after everybody probably thinks you're going to run the ball. You get Garrett Wilson coming across everybody for a little screenplay out in space. I thought that was really good. And the only thing that stopped them on that opening drive was a penalty and then a bad sack that they allowed some pressure, and that stalled that opening drive. And then from there, it was everything that I think Jets fans wanted to see from this offense. Third down conversions, time of possession, balance, Rodgers doing things that I don't know if we thought were still left in the tank for Aaron Rodgers. After the first 2 games, a lot of questions about the rust, but there were also questions of what version of Aaron Rodgers would he be when the rust does wear off? Could he be the guy that is super mobile in the pocket, that can get out and make those plays happen off structure? Well, guess what? Aaron Rodgers showed you tonight he still has that gear in him. He still has that step in him to be able to get outside the pocket and be able to extend drives. I mean, he had a couple of runs to extend drives to pick up first downs. I think he ended up with 3 carries in the game, but countless times he's able to move out of the pocket. I remember one early in the first half where he hit Jeremy Ruckert, saw the pressure, did a little slide step to his right, boom, hit Jeremy Ruckert for a little 4 or 5 yard gain to keep the drive alive. And you just saw that time in and time out tonight. When this team really needed a play to keep the drive going, to keep the momentum going, Aaron Rodgers was the guy who delivered. So for a team that has not seen that type of quarterback play in a really long time, they saw what this thing could look like at an elite level when everything is clicking. The time of possession battle absolutely dominated by the New York Jets. 40 minutes and 4 seconds, the time of possession. The New England Patriots only got to 19 minutes and 56 seconds. They just could not get anything going. This was the talk going in. If the New York Jets offense could be consistent, if they could do the thing they had not done in the first 2 weeks, and they were able to go on drives and put a lead on the board, the New England Patriots are not a team that is designed offensively to play catch up. If they have a lead, they're going to be tough, but they are a team that if they have to play catch up, they are going to struggle. And the New York Jets offense tonight heard that message, probably got that message instilled into them all week, and they went out there and delivered. The Pats didn't do a lot on their opening drive. We'll get into the defense here in a little bit. And the Jets, after getting a nice stop defensively, hand the ball back to their offense in flow. They get a free 15 yards on that first scoring drive. And it really felt like on that drive that took the Jets up 7-0, Aaron Rodgers was playing chess, not checkers, with this Patriots defense and Gerard Mayo. The constant checks at the line, the constant adjustments, the constant audibles. He was just moving pieces along the chessboard, and he was absolutely going toe to toe with this Patriots defensive staff, and he was beating them. And then he gets the ball out to Lazard. Lazard breaks a tackle, got his his t-shirt getting ripped away. It still doesn't matter. He's able to get in there. And then it was 7-0. And then from there, the Jets just never looked back. They had full control of this game. The defense came to play, and the offense left a little bit on the table, and we'll get to that a little bit when we talk about the concerns coming out of this game, because there are a couple. Some missed opportunities on the board, some missed points on the board would be the thing that's probably the biggest takeaway from the offense. But when you look up and down the team stats, 27 first downs, 10 of 15 on third down, 400 yards of offense, 70 total plays. Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball, 35 times, getting close to 300 yards, not turning the ball over. He gets 2 touchdowns. They get a rushing touchdown from Breece Hall. If we were doing a Locked On Jets precast and we were discussing the keys to victory for the New York Jets, it would be, you got to convert on third down, don't turn the ball over, have balance, and do all of the little things that they did right tonight. They just got everybody involved. Nathaniel Hackett was super creative, I think, early, being able to get multiple people involved. Some good targets for Xavier Gibson. They got Jeremy Ruckert involved after missing the touchdown last week. Probably just needs to continue to run that route, and he scores. They went back to him tonight, had him in there as a fullback. They had Solomon Thomas down there in the red zone in the goal line situation in as a fullback. They just felt like a team that had gotten more comfortable. They looked like a team that felt like, okay, 2 weeks in, we know what we've been doing well. We know what we haven't been doing well. We can add a little bit more. We're more comfortable with each other. We can add more to the plate. We can expand this playbook, add some more stuff, get a little bit more creative. And I think you saw that because this Patriots defense is no slouch. This Patriots defense caused chaos for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. They took Seattle to overtime and made Geno Smith work for it. And so for this Jets offense, with all of the questions coming in of whether or not they were going to be able to be consistent enough on a short week, for them to have this type of effort tonight, again, you have to be thrilled with them meeting the moment on Thursday night in front of their home crowd, a home crowd that was raucous, a home crowd that was ready for this moment. And they wanted to finally have their Aaron Rodgers at home at MetLife Stadium moment that they did not get a year ago in the opener on Monday Night Football. And boy, did the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers deliver in terms of their home victory. I think the first time they've beaten the Patriots at home since December of 2015. And like I mentioned in the cold open, their first 2-1 start since 2015. So you have to go way back before you will find a Jets team that has had this type of start. And it is all because of the guy playing quarterback, the guy under center, wearing number 8.
Game Time makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the free app, and new users can get $20 off their first purchase with code Locked On. Terms apply. That's code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Shohei Ohtani.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I don't know if you woke up on Thursday and even in your wildest dreams, I don't think anyone could have imagined what we got from Shohei Ohtani on Thursday. If you had imagined 50-50, that was very much plausible, and that did end up happening. But the way it happened, the fact that there was more on top of getting to 50-50, I don't know, Jeff. I think it started off with Ohtani just missing his 49th home run, but then picking up his 50th steal, and it all just kind of went from there.
Yeah, it reminds me of, like, sometimes on Twitter when, people will say, oh, predict Clayton Kershaw's stat line for tonight. And I'll say, like, 10 innings, 34 strikeouts, -6 earned runs, And this is one of those, like, if somebody said predict Shohei's stat line for today, and I said 6 for 6, 3 homers, 2 doubles, 10 RBIs, 4 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, it would have been, I wouldn't have said that seriously. It would have been joking. Not quite as extreme as the Kershaw example I said, but, yeah, like you said, you would not predict a game like this because a game like this has never happened. A game like this will probably never happen again. And the fact that Ohtani had this game in this moment to send the Dodgers to the postseason, send himself to the postseason for the first time ever, to get himself from 48-49 to 51-51. He had a walk-off grand slam to get to 40-40, and somehow he managed to make it even more dramatic, getting to 50-50. Just ridiculous. And like, it was seriously the kind of game that you will never forget. If you're a Dodger fan, you'll never forget where you were watching. This is our JFK getting shot, or whatever moment our parents talk about growing up. This was, I'm me, I'm a cheesy dad. I watched home run number 50 with my son in our living room, the same son who I was with the day that Shohei signed with the Dodgers. And I had an emotional father-son bonding moment with him back in December. And now 9 months later, boom, that baby that we conceived 9 months ago popped out and hit 50-50 today. And another awesome moment with my son, and dampened only slightly by the fact that I use a childbirth analogy to describe it.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that, and it's mentioned here, is that he didn't get the cycle, but I don't. The cycle would have been cool because it would have been done organically. Like, he tried for the triple even before he had the home run. But yeah, it's one of those where you have the 4-1 game. You have Finley's, walk-off grand slam against the Giants. You have the Dodger postseason moments. You have, a lot of different things, absolute madness. Like, there's a lot of different things over the years as Dodger fans that you can remember where you were. And it maybe a little less anticlimactic, the fact that it was a Thursday day game. Like, some people might have still been at work and not been able to watch it on TV. But regardless of it all, you're going to remember this day. You're going to remember that. The fact that he got the 50th stolen base. He got the 50th home run. He added one more to each of those totals. I guess we should have known when he had the decoy cleats on that something was going to happen, because that's when he hit number 40 and got to 40-40 was when he had the decoy cleats. And kind of funny that everything, like the cleats, he had to take them off and they got authenticated, and he had different cleats on when he hit the 51st home run. So there was a lot of different things to this game. The fact that it all culminated in the Dodgers clinching a playoff spot, Shohei Ohtani will now officially be in the playoffs for the first time in his career. The fact that the Dodgers got to salute the fact that they made the playoffs, but, still haven't had that. I think they're going to save the true celebration for winning the West in terms of getting the champagne out and spraying each other with it. But it was more than you could have asked for in a few different ways. And I don't think anyone would ask for it to happen this way. And we'll break down I'll break down another stat of just how crazy the game was. But yeah, it was one of those things where I did not expect to do all this on a Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. A Thursday day game, which, also makes it, like some people had to hear about it in a text from their dad, like my other son. he was at baseball practice after school, and he found out about 50-50 from me in a text. But 348 times a guy's hit for the cycle. 0 times before today a guy's had 50-50. Ohtani's hit for the cycle before. Ohtani will hit for the cycle again. I don't care about that cycle. And there are a lot of people who were hoping after he hit number 49 that he would not hit another one so that he could get to 50-50 at home. For me, I was all about doing it at Lone Depot Park or whatever it's called in Miami, which is where he won the World Baseball Classic 2 years ago, which is, I guess, a year and a half ago. So that's a very special place for him in his career. And I'm excited for Friday, his first at bat at Dodger Stadium. It's going to be like when a player comes back, as a visiting player after leaving a free agency or whatever, and the ovation that he gets. Shohei Ohtani is going to get a standing ovation before his first at bat on Friday. That's going to delay the game, and Dodger fans are going to get to give him all the love that they wanted to give him. Even though they didn't get to see 50-50 in person. For me, this was perfect storybook, and having literally like most RBIs in a game ever by a Dodger. First player ever to have multiple stolen bases in a 3 home run game. 20 guys had stolen 1 base in a 3 home run game. No, not 20 guys. It happened 20 times. Eric Davis did it twice. Nobody had ever stolen 2 bases in a 3 home run game. Tied for the 3rd most total bases in a game ever. Only the 7th player ever to have 17 total bases in a game. 3 of those 7 are Dodgers. Just everything about the game. Joe Davis described it as the best offensive game in history. And when you look at the overall, everything that he did, it's hard to argue with that assessment.
I think the coolest part, and maybe this is a little bit of combination of what my timeline is, but usually if you're on the For You page of Twitter, you can kind of see other things. I haven't seen anything about the fact that the last homer was off a position player. Like, it's one of those things that kind of got overlooked because it's just the greatness that it was. And a couple of stats before we head to the first break right here. So before this season, 31 players had hit 50 home runs in the season. Of those 31 players, only 2 of them have ever had a 50 steal season also in their career, Barry Bonds and Brady Anderson. Now Shohei Ohtani is the first one to have them in the same year. And then the other one that we saw is now there have been players that have had games with 10 plus RBIs, 6 plus hits, 5 plus extra base hits, 3 plus homers, and 2 plus stolen bases. There are 1 player that's ever had all of that in their entire career, not just the same game, but in their entire career. Shohei Ohtani did that all in 1 game today. So it was unprecedented. 50-50 is unprecedented. As a Dodger fan, this amount of home runs in a season, unprecedented. He broke Sean Green's record and extended it, his own record. And yeah, it's one of those where everything that you can think about in the future, none of that mattered today. And this is the one time I feel like people got to enjoy the moment and did enjoy the moment. And that's the way it should be, especially in the regular season. So.
And he gets to face Rockies pitching 6 times the rest of the season. So here comes 60-60, baby.
What the San Francisco 49ers have to do to beat the Los Angeles Rams.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, Croc, key to victory number 1 is Brandon Ayuk. And he's the guy now. He's wide receiver 1 on this football team. There's no Christian McCaffrey. There's no Deebo Samuel. So I want to see 2 things with Brandon Ayuk in this game. And we could speak to the idea that he's not getting open, which is, I think, false. Right, Croc? Over the first 2 weeks of the season, he might not be playing a full complement of snaps. He dropped a possible touchdown pass in week number 1. He doesn't have huge production. Is that because he's not early enough in the progressions, or is that because he's not getting open, Croc?
That's the key right there. Early enough in the progressions. I'm glad you said that. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on. And we got to keep our ear to the ground, keep our ear to the streets so we know what to talk about on this show. A lot of 49er fans highly upset with Brandon Ayuk. I think a lot of it is, bro, you got all this money. Where is the production? I would say point the finger at someone else. And this is why. One thing I learned about the separation stats that's floating around, right? It's like Brandon Ayuk had the lowest separation grade or rate or whatever on the 49ers week 2, the lowest out of anybody. People are like, well, they're not getting open. But then come to find out, because first, well, hold on. I went and watched all 22. Is Brandon Ayuk getting open? And I'm watching them. I'm like, Brandon is getting open. I'm like, open here, open here, open here. So I tweeted that out. I can't speak for everybody because I focused on Brandon Ayuk, but he's clearly getting open. Like there's plenty of plays where it's like large separation and the ball's not going to him. I also followed up with, I don't know the quarterback's progressions. So if he's looking right and he's not looking at Ayuk on the backside, like that's not Ayuk's fault, right? And that's not even Brock's fault. Like this is my read. It says go here. You got Ayuk open. I'm not going to get to him more times than not. All right. But I saw it there. The people responded. But Croc, the separation grade, look at this. Come to find out, the separation grade is predicated on passes to the target, to the receiver. So it doesn't account for every route that the receiver runs. It only accounts for the route the guy ran when the ball was actually thrown to him. All right, which the receiver can't control that. So in Brandon Ayuk's case, even with the lowest separation grade, he caught 4 out of the 5 passes that were thrown at him. And the one that was missed was in the end zone, which he probably had the most separation out of any of his routes on passes thrown at him. All right. So there's that part. But then if you shout out to my guy KP put together this video, it's like almost 2 minutes long, of just Brandon Ayuk just running open. So whose fault is it? It's not Brock. Right. And you're only putting it on Brock if you're saying whatever he's seeing pre-snap or whatever he saw in this past game, pre-snap and post-snap didn't align. And then maybe he's supposed to go to Ayuk and he didn't. He didn't get there. All right. And he went elsewhere. That's the only way you could put it on him. But I put it on Kyle Shanahan. And the reason why I put on Kyle Shanahan, and we'll see if things change this week with you maybe having to do more with him, which I just don't see. I don't see Kyle's philosophy and mindset shifting on his passing game. All right. But if Kyle says, you know what, I'm going to go away from what I do, which is, man, I got all these terrific weapons. Hey, we're just going to run this play. And the defense is going to dictate where this ball goes. And I trust in Brock to get the ball to the right place. So whether it's Brandon Ayuk, Kyle Juszczyk, Juwan Jennings, I don't think Kyle really cares. Hey, just run it. And this guy, I think his offense is more plug and play than most people realize. It's just with certain guys in certain areas, you can maybe get more out of it, right? Like if a guy's just bigger, stronger, faster, maybe he could do a little bit more, but it doesn't matter if I have Brandon Ayuk at the X or Juwan Jennings at the X. If you just run this post right here, the play concept is gonna work the same. And I think that's where they have a hard time understanding that. So it's not even so much about Brandon Ayuk and his lack of production. It's Kyle doing things to ensure that Brandon Ayuk is a part of the progression, which you started out saying.
Yeah, and this was the entire conversation about whether or not do you pay Brandon Ayuk? Do you trade him? Is he valued that way to the 49ers to be a $30 million receiver? Because most of those guys are number one options on their team.
And what was our response to that? What was our answer to that question?
Well, maybe the 49ers haven't proven that they value and will utilize Brandon Ayuk in that way. So why would you pay a guy that way if you're not going to utilize him in that way? And my argument for Brandon Ayuk was more into the future post Debo, post Christian McCaffrey, which already happened in week 3, Croc, which is where I'm at with Brandon Ayuk. And look, if you're just going to treat him as a backside option, you're like, 1 and 2 aren't there. There's Ayuk, backside dig. Boom. You know, that's where he gets a lot of his production as a backside player of a play. But I want to see screen passes. I want to see him in motion, isolating him to get him open, whip routes, return routes, catch and run stuff, deep balls down the field. I want to see him utilized in a way that he's already utilized, but also get the Debo targets too. I want to see 15 targets for Brandon Ayuk in this game. I want to see him get the first target of the game. I want to see him get the second target of the game. I want to see him get the ball handed to him. I want to see him have opportunities after the catch. I want to see volume for him. And this is sort of a little portal that we get to see what this might look like into the future. 2026, a highly paid wide receiver in Brandon Ayuk as the number one, a highly paid quarterback in Brock Purdy? What's that passing game going to look like? What's that offense going to look like potentially without Debo and Christian McCaffrey into the future? Who knows? Maybe without George Kittle too. And I want to see George Kittle get 10 targets in this game as well. But I want to see an offense where Brandon Ayuk is featured, which we haven't seen a lot, despite his pretty good production being more of a backside player for the 49ers passing game. And specifically,
real quick,
yeah.
I don't even think that he's a backside player. I think it's just he's only backside depending on how Brock Purdy pre-snap sees it. So there could be times where, hey, this is the route. You got this route. And then Brock comes out and looks and he says, oh, okay, the safety's here, linebackers here. Okay, I should be able to hit Ayuk here. Then Ayuk turns into wide receiver 1 on that play. But then there could be times where if they show this and show that, then, oh, okay, the ball should go to George Kittle on this play. I think it's more predicated on that than just Ayuk is a backside or second read in the offense.
Well, I think a lot of times, what we saw last week, which is why Brian Flores had a really good game plan against Kyle Shanahan, is Kyle Shanahan, he's in the quarterback's ear. So he's telling Brock Purdy, even as they're going to the lines, okay, watch this, watch the save on this. It's usually, I think, the early reads are the ones that are getting the ball, and Kyle Shanahan designs who those early reads are supposed to, like who's supposed to be open on the play. And I think a lot of times Ayuk is not the guy who's supposed to be open. He's like, watch this. We're going to really get 44. We're going to get our fullback wide open on this play. We're going to get George Kittle wide open on this play. We're going to hit Debo, let him catch and run. This play's designed. Most of the throws to running backs, people are talking about how, man, why aren't they giving the ball to Jordan Mason out of the backfield? He's standing there wide open on a play, and Brock is waiting and holding the ball, getting sacked or forcing something else down the field. Jordan Mason's right here. Most of the running back targets for Christian McCaffrey are designed running back targets. They're not just like check down throws to the running back. So that's why I was calling, it's maybe a bad shorthand for it. That's why I'm calling Ayuk more of a backside player in the offense, because he doesn't get that stuff designed for him as much as the other players. And this week he has to. And going into the future, if you're going to pay him $30 million, you should have a plan to feature him.
So that's what you want to see. Is that what you expect to see?
I think this week I do expect to see that. Who else are you going to feature? Because the guys that get featured the most and have those auto targets, and they kind of need them in that way because they don't get open in the same way that a Brandon Ayuk does, aren't on the field for the 49ers this week. So he better be featured. And if he's not featured now, when will Brandon Ayuk ever be featured?
You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have a little something different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. For that $5 bet, you can take a look at some early week 3 lines. The LA Chargers are off to their first 2-0 start in 12 years, and they're running into a 2-0 Pittsburgh Steelers team. FanDuel likes the Steelers at home by 1.5 points. The Chargers are run first. The Steelers are defense first. Someone's got to figure it out. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Jordan Love practiced 2 days in a row. It looks like he could go on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast.
Jordan Love practiced back-to-back days this week. And it wasn't just the Wednesday, though let's start there. If this were a charade, if last week had been a charade and just gamesmanship, then they could have just played this out. Jordan Love is spotted at practice on Wednesday. And then Thursday, he's doing some light running over on the side. And then Friday, he is in a helmet and shells and is limited in practice, questionable to start, downgraded on Saturday. Sunday can't go. And everyone says, well, he was close, but he just wasn't quite ready. And the Packers have every excuse. They have every excuse to say, look, he was really close, we thought, last week. And now, he got himself some work and the knee was responding. And on Friday, he was ready to, give it a go, but we just weren't comfortable with the amount of time he got, didn't spend the whole week working through the game plan. And so, he just couldn't be out there and it's a Malik Willis week. I still think it's more likely than not we get a Malik Willis week, but Jordan Love practicing on Wednesday tells me that what we heard last week and coming into this week was right. That he might have been closer to playing. I don't think he was ever realistically going to play on Sunday. But clearly, he is progressing nicely in his rehab from this MCL injury, and that the timelines that were originally reported, the 4 to 6 weeks, no. Ian Rappaport has been the closest on this because he said 3 weeks. I think it ends up being 3 weeks. If you look at the look-ahead lines, the Packers still underdogs in Tennessee if Jordan Love were going to play. And when the lines opened before the season, before Jordan Love got hurt, the Packers were favorites in Tennessee. They're now 0-2 with 2 inglorious losses. Just incredible choke jobs by them because Will Levis cannot stop turning the ball over in truly sublime ways. But the Packers underdogs, 1.5 point underdogs on Sunday. But they are favorites at home in a week to the Minnesota Vikings, who are 2-0 and just beat the San Francisco 49ers. The only reason the Packers would be favorites at home to that team is because the odds makers, our friends at FanDuel, for example, believe Jordan Love is going to play next week. Now, the line has dropped. Is that because of money? Is that because of information? We don't know. But it's okay. Wednesday happens. But that's just step one. Okay, he practices. Does he get a day off after? How does the knee respond? This is an important touchstone in trying to get back. And so Thursday, he's out there in what appears to be a bulkier brace. And again, to me, if there was really no realistic chance Jordan Love was going to play on Sunday, the sleeve that had a little bit of extra padding in the knee that he wore Wednesday, and it looked like a hybrid to me, would have been enough. You could have practiced in it. You're not really risking that much in practice because there's not going to be contact and all those things. But on Thursday, there was the sleeve, and he wore sleeves on both legs. That seemed intentional too, but that's neither here nor there. But then wore the bulkier brace, the metal brace, the real brace, the I'm going to wear this one in the game brace. And I had a conversation with someone who specializes in these sorts of things, a medical doctor who specializes in, sports orthopedics. And they said there is an increased risk this week, and that next week, that risk decreases 10 to 15-ish%. Now, the Packers are going to have to decide if that delta is worth it. Can you beat the Tennessee Titans without Jordan Love? I think you can, and I said that yesterday. We spent most of our crossover Thursday with Tyler Rowland talking about why this is an advantageous matchup for the Green Bay Packers and why Malik Willis can still get some things done against this Tennessee defense. Now, whether or not that's true in practice, we'll see on Sunday if Malik Willis is in fact the starter.
But that was before we saw him practice on Wednesday. And of course, before he practiced on Thursday in this knee brace. I actually don't, and it's not going to make for the best radio, but I don't have a strong take on whether or not he should play. Longtime listeners of this show, everydayers, know I don't like that word. Should. What? Should? I don't like it in general. I don't. And I certainly don't like it when we just don't have the information. If the risk is an extra 10 to 15% of re-injury for Jordan Love, and Elton Jenkins is going to play, and it looks like Elton Jenkins is going to play. He practiced yesterday, and Jaden Reed practiced yesterday. We'll talk about the injuries at the end. And Jordan Love says, I'm good, I can protect myself, then that's what you do. This is how NFL teams work. If your players are healthy enough to play, they play. And in some ways, I don't even know why this is a conversation. Why is this a discussion? If Jordan Love is cleared to play, then he's going to play. And the players who are cleared to play, you're only cleared if the premise originally from medical staff is they are not at an undue risk, to me, an undue risk of re-injury or future injury, whether it's the current injury or another type of injury, because we know that can happen too. You hurt one thing. Is this going to put you at a major risk for a different type of injury because this is not healed 100%? It is up to the medical staff to determine, is Jordan Love at an undue risk? An undue risk. That part of it is critical. Is it an unnecessary and reckless move to play him? If it's not, there is, I would say, just like a skosh, just like the teensiest bit of gray area where it's like, yes, can he play? Yes, sure. Is it optimal? No. Is he at additional risk from 100% healthy of re-injuring his knee? Yes. But could he go out there and play? Also, yes. But I don't know how you adjudicate that gray area, because there's risk anytime you go out there. There's risk to every quarterback, every player who steps foot on the field. They take on risk. And the idea that, okay, it's a 10 or 15% additional risk. Percent. Now that's off the baseline. But the baseline's not 0. So if the risk is 30% and you're 10 to 15% off 30, because it's not, you add like, okay, now they're 40, 45% more likely to get injured. I don't think that's how it works. I think it's 10 to 15% in addition to the 30% that it would, like, okay, here's a great example. Growing up, we used to go up to our cottage in Rhinelander. Shout out the Northwood, shout out the Hodags. And every morning when I was growing up, I'm old enough that we would turn on the radio. God bless. The radio. And they would say, right before we listened to Paul Harvey, good day, there's a 30% chance of rain. Every day in the summer, there would be a 30% chance of rain. Okay? You just knew anytime you went anywhere, there was a chance, a 30% chance it was going to rain. Let me tell you, if they came on one day and said there's a 40% chance it's going to rain, was I going to change my behavior in any way? Was I more likely to grab a raincoat or an umbrella? No. So if that's what we're talking about, if we're talking about, okay, in any NFL game, you have a 30% chance of getting injured, and Jordan Love has a 40 or 45% chance of being injured,
Now, once you tip to 50 and once you tip that scale, like if it's more likely than not he's going to be hurt than not, no. So let's say it's 20% and now it's 35% that he gets injured. Then he's going to play. And the should part is not even relevant, honestly, but like he's going to play and that makes sense that he would play. If he's cleared, he's going to play.
Game Time makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the free app and new users can get $20 off their first purchase with code Locked On. Terms apply. That's code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
There's a new proposed settlement that could keep Florida State and Clemson in the ACC.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports, others are now reporting, I don't know who leaked this, maybe the ACC, that they're talking about a settlement that would involve the ACC actually shortening their grant of rights to finish in 2030 rather than 2036, while also adjusting their payout structure to pay their member universities. Part of that pot would go based on your television ratings and your media worth rather than an equal split or even a strictly competitive split. So what was your reaction when you saw this bombshell dropped?
I mean, are we really surprised by this is my question, right? Like, objectively speaking, has the ACC not already capitulated to the bigger brands and the bigger names coming up with a tiered system for, if you accomplish these things, you'll get more and da-da-da. And as we see, those teams are struggling to accomplish those things at the moment.
Success initiative, not very successful, some of these teams on the field. One of them is specific.
Yeesh, yikes. But in all seriousness, you kind of look at that as your first thing there. And then on top of that, you say to yourself, if you are talking from the ACC standpoint, this absolutely guarantees you stability at least through the next 6 years. It grants you that. It guarantees you that through the next 6 years. But from the ACC standpoint, again, what is to stop these teams from suing you again in 2 to 3 years if the deal doesn't look right? They have shown a propensity to sign a contract and then say, actually, I don't like the terms of what I signed. Because if I am correct here, did Florida State and Clemson not sign the grant of rights twice? 2 times. So it wasn't like a one-time deal way back in 2000 and they got in this deal in perpetuity and they found themselves in a lifetime deal. This was something that was looked at, reviewed. Your people looked over it and said, you know what? We're going to do it. Not once, but twice in the very recent past. So, I mean, objectively speaking, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, you can try and you can fight and you can scream and you can claw and you can say, hey, we'll give you more, we'll give you more, we'll give you more. But at some point in time, the rubber's going to meet the road and the reality is going to meet the reality that these teams don't want to be here regardless.
That's well said. I hadn't even thought of that. Like, again, like I would assume that like part of the settlement would be you promise not to sue us again, but that doesn't mean they already, like you said, they already signed the grant of rights and they're still suing. So that doesn't really guarantee anything. Now, another way that I look at this proposal, and we'll talk about what it would take to actually get this to pass, right? I see, people who are like blind ACC homers who are like, oh, this is a win for the ACC, and FSU is 0-3, so they're humbled now. I see people on the Florida State side who are like, well, this is what we wanted. This is a win for us. We proposed this 2 years ago to have the payout model based on TV ratings, right? The bottom line, Kenton, is both sides would be giving something up here.
Yes.
Both sides.
Yes.
And this would definitely show you there has got to be fear from an ACC point of view and fear from a Florida State and Clemson point of view of what would happen if they lost in court, right?
Yeah.
Because, if Florida State and Clemson, if they lose in court, if they cannot prove that the grant of rights is breakable or flawed, then they could potentially be stuck until 2036 with a revenue model that does not give them favoritism, right? That's a big risk.
Right.
From an ACC point of view, if the ACC was so sure that the grant of rights was ironclad, why give up an inch? Why give up anything? Like, if you're so sure that your document is unbreakable, why not just say, you know what? We've got you guys here held hostage till 2036. So obviously there has to be some concern on both sides that there is a chance this does not go our way in court. And I want to say something else on this, Kenton, because, I see some folks out there and, most of like the actual write-ups, I mentioned the one from Ross Dellinger on Yahoo. I was reading some write-ups on from the Tallahassee newspaper, from a newspaper in North Carolina. The actual stories explain it very well, but a lot of people don't read like actual news stories. They read, they read tweets and Facebook posts and whatever. So I see this is being kind of reported and passed along by a lot of people saying, well, the ACC is agreeing to pay Florida State and Clemson more than the other schools. That's not exactly what it is. Like, and yes, Florida State and Clemson have been the top ratings schools for the past several years in the ACC. So those have tended to be the universities that bring the most eyes to the set. So theoretically, they would get paid the most. But at the same time, every school in the ACC would have the same opportunity. All 17 would have the same opportunity. And you've got some programs that seem to be on the rise right now, like Louisville and Miami. So you get an opportunity, your teams get better, you get more eyes on the set, you have an opportunity to make a higher share of revenue. Because honestly, I know not everybody likes this because it's not the way college sports have been traditionally done. But when you're talking about distributing money from a television contract, doesn't it make sense to distribute television money based on how many people watch these teams on television? Like, I don't think it's a ridiculous concept to say that if more people watch your games, you make more money.
Yeah, and beyond that, first of all, that's the most American thing there is, right? The based on your own merit, what you do, all that good stuff. It fits in with the concept and the belief of what this country is supposed to be founded upon and built upon. But let's go a little deeper for a second. In a good compromise, or as the old saying goes, if nobody's happy, it's a great compromise. If everybody is happy, you talked about the idea of both sides having to give up something. Both sides are having to give up a lot here. But again, it is all dependent and hinges on, will Florida State and Clemson honor it? That's the most important thing about this whole deal to me, because it seems to me, like you said, both sides are giving something up. But what do both sides give up if the other side's like, yeah, actually, I know I said I'd give it up. I had my fingers crossed behind my back the whole time. Here's my lawyer. We'll see you in court, buddy. That is very much so a part of this. And so, a lot like the other conferences that said, hey, these have been disruptive partners. Well, imagine the person that's actually the partner being disrupted. Imagine how they feel. So, I look at these proposals and I say, this is ACC absolutely acting in good faith, despite them not receiving that same treatment in kind at times from these two universities.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, when we come back, I want to talk about, because like you can make an argument that Florida State and Clemson could quote unquote win here, being able to access more revenue, that the ACC as a whole could win here, being able to keep, their two of their biggest brands in the conference for an extra handful of years.
You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have a little something different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. For that $5 bet, you can take a look at some early week 3 lines. The LA Chargers are off to their first 2-0 start in 12 years, and they're running into a 2-0 Pittsburgh Steelers team. FanDuel likes the Steelers at home by 1.5. The Chargers are run first. The Steelers are defense first. Someone's got to figure it out. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
More SEC on SEC action this week.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference.
Let's dive into it. Marla, we got bye weeks for Bama and Georgia. Just a quick thought. I mean, 2 weeks for both those teams to prep. I don't think, it feels like next week's conversation is going to be dominated by that matchup.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I believe it was the first primetime game that they set when they rolled out everything with the new SEC on ABC and ESPN schedule. That was one of the first games of the year that was circled, put it prime time, all the good stuff. It should be a great game. It's in Tuscaloosa. It feels weird whenever these two meet up, not in Atlanta, when they meet up at an actual home stadium. And it's really the first time because outside the COVID year, it's the first full stadium they would have played each other in since 2015. Here's the thing. Bama bounced back against Wisconsin, looked a lot better than they did against USF. Georgia, kind of the opposite. There's no chance that Georgia team that was in Lexington is going to be the same Georgia team that's in Tuscaloosa. There's absolutely no way. And I think Kirby Smart has to love it because you got this prisoner of the moment mentality from everyone doubting Georgia now after the game against Kentucky. And you're everyone's just forgetting about them dismantling Clemson in week 1.
Yeah, and he loves the AP bumping Texas ahead of them. And I mean, come on, Kirby's going to go, no one believes in us. I mean, okay, we'll see how that one plays out next week. Let's get into some of the games this week. 11 a.m. Central on ESPN, Marlo. This is the lead. College game day is leading into this game. We will get 1-2 Florida at Mississippi State. The Gators, a 6-point road favorite. I don't know anybody other than maybe Vandy they would be favored against on the road, but Graham Mertz and DJ Lagway expected to both play again. Trey Wilson on the injury report again these last couple days, so it sounds like he will not play. But talk about, man, if Billy Napier loses this one, he will not be the head coach in 2 weeks when they play UCF.
Dude, it's so weird because, you're right. That seems like that would be the logical solution and next step, and also probably deserved at this point. If you lose to a team that just got beat by 24 to against Toledo, the optics of that are so bad. The thing that's so weird about this though is that Scott Strickland is still the more deserving person that should be fired at Florida, the AD. And he's made 6 total hires, I think. The thing about Scott Strickland is that you can't let him make the next hire. He cannot be in charge of it because his track record has been so bad. But the good news for him is that he doesn't have to trot out there and coach 9 more games on national television. So I think it should be, this is going to be I hope it rains. And it's just an absolute slop fest. Because that's what it feels like from both programs going into it.
Yeah, it's funny. I watched the replay the other night on SEC Network of the Toledo, Mississippi State. And I don't know, man. They just start so cold out of the gates. They scored 3 points in the first half in each of the last 2 weeks that they've lost Mississippi State. I'm like, Jeff Lebby, you're this offensive mind, dude. What's going on? And then they turn it on the second half. They can score points, but I don't know. This could get real ugly. But Florida, man, it was ugly last week against A&M, and everybody was calling for Lagway, and he kind of came back down to earth. But no guy could get any. If you just keep switching quarterbacks every drive, you can't get any kind of momentum going.
No, it's really the way he's handled it. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I don't think anybody thought Billy Napier was going to handle this very delicate situation in like in a promising way. That just would not be the Napier way. But I will say that, like, last week Lagway comes in, he didn't look great. Mertz looked good at times. The main thing is, like, whoever is able to run the football, oddly enough, is going to win this game, because like that's not a staple for a Jeff Levy offense or anything like that. But you watch what Arizona State did to Mississippi State. You watch what A&M did to Florida. I mean, at one point going into half, I think it was like 13-0, and Florida pinned A&M down to the 1-yard line. And A&M went on a 15-play, 99-yard drive, and they ran the football on 14 of the 15 plays. So I think that is going to be like the probably like the game plan for both teams, but it's also not the strength.
Right.
Oof.
Well, it's gonna be ugly. You making a pick in this one?
I don't want to, but I will. I mean, listen, Florida should have a more talented roster. I just can't get over Mississippi State not only losing by 24 to a MAC team. I also still can't get over the fact that they just got ran through by Arizona State, who kind of struggled on like in the ground game against Texas State the week after.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably go with Florida too, but I don't like it at all. But by the way, Urban Meyer saying on a podcast this week, asked, if Florida fires Napier, would you go back and coach? He said that ship has sailed. So Urban Meyer not coming back to Gainesville. Lock it in.
I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise, but like, what's he got going on? He's got nothing to do.
This podcast going on
That's
with Mark Ingram and all the big noon snooze fest games over there on Fox. 11. Speaking of snooze fest, how about 11 a.m. Central, 12 Eastern on the SEC Network? It'll be 2-1 Ohio at 1-2 Kentucky. The Wildcats 20-point home favorites. I had to look it up. Ohio lost by 16 to Syracuse week 1. They beat South Alabama in week 2. Kentucky, Mark Stoops saying that Chip Trainum will be out again this week. Sumo Karngbe has actually been a pretty solid running back so far for him. But to me, this is one, Marla, get Brock Vandergriff going. 3 starts so far, 300 yards. Like, we're going back to the old days of sucky quarterbacks at Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, also just got a little PTSD from that Ohio-Syracuse game, because they lost by 16, and the spread was definitely 16.5, so people don't forget. No, I mean, they have to get Vandergriff going. Like, he was good at times last week. He needs a complimentary run game. It's very clear that he's not talented enough to do all this on his own. He's got the receivers, and he's got a decent supporting cast around him. That offensive line has just been bad. I mean, just really, really bad. Like, I think his last 30 or so dropbacks, I think he was pressured on over 52% of them. I mean, he's been running for his life. And granted, it's Georgia, but it's the same way against South Carolina. They just haven't looked crisp at all. And you would think usually with Kentucky, they get some of these easy games out of the way early. That is not the case this season. I mean, they have to bury this team early.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Again, Kentucky, you got to win this one, and hopefully, it sounds like the fan base is bought back in a little bit after the close loss to Georgia. I mean, they honestly could have won that game, but let the opportunity slip away. Let's get to what I think is really, in my opinion, Marla, the SEC game of the week. We'll get to Tennessee, Oklahoma later, but 2:30 Central on ESPN. It's 2-1 Arkansas, 2-1 Auburn. Auburn's been sitting at about a 3-point home favorite all week in this one. The Hank Brown era officially gets underway. 4 touchdown passes last week in his debut against New Mexico. The thing about Arkansas, though, Marla, they have not scored less than 30 points in a game this year. Bobby Petrino has been doing his thing offensively, maybe a little bit closer to versus UAB last week than it should have been, but this is a monumental game for both sides. Like, if you win this game, you're going to be feeling really good about yourself. If you lose, you're going to feel like the season's over.
Yeah, I mean, this is always I feel like the drunkest SEC game every single year. Like, something stupid will happen in this game. The thing about Hank Brown, he looked really good last week. 4 touchdowns, no picks. I think he was like 68% completion percentage, whatever. He did all that without Cam Coleman, which is, I think, like, it feels like he can only be going up from here. Arkansas's defense is not exactly great. I would expect Landon Jackson to finally get going a little bit against a pretty bad Auburn offensive line. But here's the thing that's scary is New Mexico ran the ball at will against Auburn for most of that game. And I think they averaged like over 6 yards a carry, over 5.5 yards a carry, like throughout the entire game. You look at what Arkansas has, the running back, whose name is escaping me right now, but he's averaging over 8 yards a carry. Taylor Green, who's been tremendous, is averaging over 6 yards a carry. And as long as they can protect the football for both sides, really. But if Arkansas can protect the football, they should already be 3-0. They could easily be 4-0 going into this game. I just don't know if they have the mental composure to last 60 minutes in a tough environment. But this is honestly, man, if you said that Arkansas won by 10 or Auburn won by 30, there's the range of what could happen in this game is so wide. Right. I would believe anything.
Yeah, Travis Williams. I mean, this is your paycheck game. You're supposed to be a really good DC. This is one go earn your paycheck and show what you can do. And I'm getting the vibes, Marler, that Hank Brown comes crashing back down to earth, that he throws a pick six, that he fumbles a ball. That's my early feel in the game. But right. Arkansas, I mean, you're going to have to play real special to go win on the road. And to your point, though, Jaquin Jackson, Taylor Green, I think the offense could do enough. We'll see. But I'm leaning Arkansas on the upset right now.